The cold autumn rain hammered the streets of Clarksville, Tennessee, turning the alleyways into rivers of grime and forgotten hopes. Officer Derek Hale pulled his patrol cruiser to the curb near the overpass, where the homeless encampment sprawled like a wound across the city's conscience. Cardboard shelters sagged under the downpour. Blue tarps flapped in the wind. The air smelled of wet concrete, exhaust fumes, and desperation. Derek was 42 years old, a veteran of the Clarksville Police Department with 18 years on the force. His face was weathered from long nights and longer days, his dark hair graying at the temples. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. He'd been a K-9 officer for a decade before his partner, a Belgian Malinois named Titan, had been retired due to a torn ACL sustained during a suspect apprehension. That was 8 months ago, and Derek still felt the absence like a phantom limb. Titan now lived with Derek's ex-wife, Amanda, and their teenage daughter, Riley, in a house on the other side of town. The divorce had been amicable enough, driven more by Derek's inability to leave the job at the station than by any great betrayal. Amanda had taken custody of Titan because, as she'd gently explained, Riley needed the dog more than Derek did. He'd agreed because it was true, even though it tore him apart. Tonight, Derek was responding to a noise complaint. Again. The business owners along Commerce Street had been pressuring City Hall for months to clear out the homeless camp. They claimed it was bad for tourism, bad for business, bad for the city's image. Derek had heard it all before, and he hated every word of it. He stepped out of the cruiser, pulling his jacket tighter against the rain. His boots splashed through puddles as he walked toward the cluster of tents. Most of the residents knew him by now. He'd brought food, blankets, and medical supplies more times than he could count, using his own money when the department's resources ran dry. Evening, Officer Hale called a thin woman in her 50s, her face lined with the hard years of street life. She sat beneath a sagging tarp, a small camp stove heating a dented pot of soup. "Evening, Marie," Derek replied, nodding. "Everything okay tonight?" "Same as always," she said with a weary smile, cold, wet, and forgotten. Derek's chest tightened. He wished he had an answer that mattered, something more than empty reassurances and temporary band-aids. But the truth was, he was just one cop in a city that had stopped caring a long time ago. He continued deeper into the camp, checking on the usual faces, making sure no one was in immediate danger. The rain had driven most people into their makeshift shelters, but near the far edge of the encampment, beneath the shadow of the overpass, he noticed something unusual. A medium-sized tent, olive green and military issue, sat isolated from the others. And in front of it, unmoving despite the driving rain, sat Titan. Derek froze. His heart lurched into his throat. The Belgian Malinois was unmistakable, 80 pounds of tan and black fur, ears alert, eyes fixed on the tent entrance. The dog's posture was rigid, disciplined. The stance Derek had seen 1,000 times during their years together. Titan was guarding something. "Titan?" Derek called, his voice breaking slightly. The dog's ears twitched, and his head turned. When Titan's amber eyes met Derek's, there was a flicker of recognition, a momentary softening, but the dog didn't move. He didn't run to greet his former handler. He simply watched, then turned his attention back to the tent. Derek approached slowly, rain streaming down his face. "Boy, what are you doing here? How did you—" He stopped. The question didn't matter. What mattered was that Titan, a retired K-9 with a bum leg who should have been sleeping on Riley's bed right now, was sitting in the freezing rain, refusing to leave this tent. Derek pulled out his phone and called Amanda. She answered on the third ring, her voice thick with worry. "Derek, do you have him? Please tell me you have him." "I found him," Derek said. "He's okay. But Amanda, how did he get out?" "I don't know," she said, and he could hear the tears in her voice. "Riley left the back gate open by accident when she took out the trash. I didn't notice until an hour ago. I've been driving around looking for him." "Where is he?" "The homeless camp near the overpass. Commerce Street. I'll be there in 10 minutes." Derek knelt beside Titan, reaching out to stroke the dog's soaked fur. "What's going on, buddy? What are you protecting?" Titan whined, a low, mournful sound, and pawed gently at the tent flap. Then he barked once, sharp and urgent. Derek's instincts flared. That bark wasn't random. It was a signal, the same alert bark Titan used to give during searches when he'd found something critical. "Sir?" Derek called toward the tent. "This is Officer Hale with Clarksville PD. I need you to come out, please. I'm not here to move you. I just need to make sure you're okay." Silence. Derek tried again. "Sir, your dog is very concerned about you." "I'm coming in." He unzipped the tent flap slowly, his flashlight cutting through the darkness inside. The man lying on the thin sleeping bag was in his late 30s, lean and gaunt, with a shaggy beard and hollow eyes. He wore a tattered army jacket, the name tape still visible, SGT, Bishop. His breathing was shallow, labored, and his skin had a grayish pallor that made Derek's stomach drop. "Jesus," Derek whispered. He keyed his radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 12. I need EMS to Commerce Street overpass immediately. I have a male, late 30s, unresponsive, and in respiratory distress." He reached for the man's wrist, feeling for a pulse. It was there, thready and weak. Derek's training kicked in. He checked the man's airway, tilted his head back, and began assessing for injuries or overdose symptoms. That's when he saw it. Tucked beneath the sleeping bag, partially hidden, was a small, weathered photo frame. Derek picked it up, his chest tightening. The photo showed a younger version of the man in the tent, clean-shaven and smiling, standing in full Army uniform beside another soldier. They both wore the tan berets of Army Rangers. The second soldier's face was partially obscured, but Derek could make out enough to see the resemblance. Brothers, he thought. Or maybe just brothers in arms. Titan whined again, pushing his nose into the tent. "I know, boy," Derek murmured. "I know." Amanda's car pulled up moments later, headlights cutting through the rain. She jumped out, her blonde hair plastered to her face, and ran toward them. Riley followed, a slim 16-year-old with her father's dark eyes and her mother's stubborn determination. "Titan!" Riley cried, dropping to her knees beside the dog. She wrapped her arms around his neck, sobbing. "Don't ever do that again. You scared me so bad." But Titan didn't move. He leaned into her. Embrace for just a moment, then pulled away, returning his focus to the tent. Amanda looked at Derek, confusion and fear mingling in her expression. "What's going on?" "There's a man inside," Derek said quietly. "He's in bad shape." Titan found him. The wail of sirens grew closer. Within minutes, 2 paramedics were kneeling beside the unconscious veteran, checking vitals, starting an IV line, loading him onto a stretcher. "Severe pneumonia," one of the paramedics said grimly. "Maybe sepsis." Another few hours and he'd be gone. Derek watched as they carried Sergeant Bishop to the ambulance, the man's face pale and lifeless under the harsh glare of the emergency lights. He looked down at Titan, who sat trembling in the rain, his amber eyes following the stretcher. "How did you know?" Derek whispered. Amanda crouched beside them, her hand resting on Titan's head. "He's been restless all week," she said softly. "Pacing at night, whining at the door. I thought it was just his leg, bothering him, but he knew," Derek finished. Riley wiped her eyes. "Dad, can we go with him? With Titan, I mean. To the hospital. I don't want him to be alone." Derek looked at his daughter, then at his ex-wife, then at the dog who had once been his partner and was now something more, a guardian, a protector, a living embodiment of loyalty that transcended training. "Yeah," he said. "Let's go." At Clarksville General Hospital, the emergency room hummed with the controlled chaos of late-night trauma care. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the sterile white walls. Derek stood near the nurse's station, his uniform still damp from the rain, while Amanda and Riley sat in the waiting area, Titan lying at their feet. The dog hadn't moved since they'd arrived. His eyes were fixed on the double doors marked "Authorized Personnel Only," where the paramedics had taken Sergeant Bishop. A nurse, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and graying hair, pulled back in a bun, approached Derek. Her name tag read Linda Marsh, RN. "Officer Hale?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am. The gentleman you brought in, Sergeant Bishop, he's stable for now. Dr. Garrett is with him. Pneumonia, as suspected, and severe dehydration. We've started antibiotics and fluids. He's going to need a few days in ICU, but he should pull through." Derek exhaled, relief flooding through him. "That's good. That's really good." Linda hesitated. "There's something else. We found a medical alert bracelet on him. He's diabetic, insulin dependent, and he has PTSD documented in his veteran's health records. It looks like he hasn't had proper medical care in months, maybe longer." Derek's jaw tightened. "He's homeless." "I gathered that," Linda said gently. "But officer, he's also a decorated combat veteran. His records show 3 tours in Afghanistan, multiple commendations, a Purple Heart. This man served his country, and now," she trailed off, shaking her head, "now he's dying under an overpass," Derek finished bitterly. Linda nodded. "I've seen it too many times. They come home, and we forget about them." Derek glanced toward the waiting area, where Titan still lay motionless, watching the doors. "That dog saved his life tonight. If he hadn't found him, then we'd be calling the coroner instead of admitting him," Linda said. "Your K9 is something special." "He's not mine anymore," Derek said quietly. "But yeah, he is." The hours dragged on. Amanda brought coffee from the vending machine, awful and lukewarm, but Derek drank it anyway. Riley had fallen asleep in one of the plastic chairs, her head resting on her mother's shoulder, one hand still tangled in Titan's fur. Around 3 a.m., the doors to the ICU finally opened. A doctor emerged, a tall man in his 50s with silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses. His scrubs were wrinkled, and exhaustion lined his face. "Officer Hale?" he asked. Derek stood. "That's me. I'm Dr. Garrett. Sergeant Bishop is awake, barely, but he's asking for you." Derek blinked. "For me? He doesn't even know me." "He mentioned a dog," Dr. Garrett said. "A Belgian Malinois. Said the dog wouldn't leave him alone. I'm guessing that's yours?" Derek looked at Titan. "Yeah, sort of. Well, he wants to thank whoever brought him in, and honestly, I think seeing the dog might help. PTSD patients often respond better to animals than to people. If you're willing." "I'm willing," Derek said. Amanda woke Riley gently, and the 4 of them, Derek, Amanda, Riley, and Titan, followed Dr. Garrett through the double doors and into the ICU. Sergeant Bishop lay in a bed near the window, his body connected to a web of IV lines and monitoring equipment. The machines beeped softly, rhythmic and steady. His face was still pale, but his eyes were open, a startling shade of gray that seemed to carry the weight of too many battles. When Titan entered the room, the dog's ears perked forward. He limped slightly as he approached the bed, his injured legs stiff but functional. Bishop's eyes widened, and a faint smile tugged at his cracked lips. "Hey, boy," he whispered, his voice rough and broken. "You came back." Titan rested his chin on the edge of the bed, his tail giving a slow, gentle wag. Bishop's hand, trembling and pale, reached out to stroke the dog's head. "I knew you wouldn't leave me," Bishop said, tears welling in his eyes. "I knew it." Derek stepped forward. "Sergeant Bishop, I'm Officer Derek Hale. This is my daughter Riley and my ex-wife Amanda. Titan, he's our dog. Retired K9. He found you tonight." Bishop looked up at Derek, confusion flickering across his face. "Your dog?" "Yeah," Derek said. "He escaped from our yard and ran straight to you. We don't know how he knew, but he saved your life." Bishop's gaze returned to Titan, and fresh tears streamed down his face. "I was dreaming," he said quietly. "I thought I was back in Kandahar. My squad was pinned down, and our MWD, our military working dog, Sarge, he alerted on an IED before we walked into it. Saved 6 of us that day." He swallowed hard. "Sarge didn't make it out. Took shrapnel protecting me." Derek's throat tightened. "I'm sorry." "I thought," Bishop's voice broke. "I thought I saw him again, standing outside my tent. I thought I was dying, and he'd come to take me home." Riley stepped closer, her hand resting on Titan's back. "He wasn't Sarge," she said softly. "But maybe Sarge sent him. Maybe he knew you needed help." Bishop looked at the young girl, his gray eyes filled with a pain that words couldn't touch. "Maybe," he whispered. They stayed for another 20 minutes, until Bishop's exhaustion pulled him back toward sleep. Before they left, he reached out once more to touch Titan's head. "Thank you," he said, looking at Derek, "for everything." "You don't have to thank me," Derek replied. "You served. That means something." Bishop's smile was sad. "Does it?" Derek didn't have an answer. As they walked back through the ICU, Amanda took Derek's hand, squeezing gently. "We need to help him," she said. "When he gets out of here, he can't go back to that tent." "I know," Derek said. "I'm working on it." But the truth was, he didn't know how. The system that was supposed to catch veterans like Sergeant Bishop had failed him at every turn, and Derek was just one cop, one man, trying to hold back an ocean of neglect with his bare hands. Still, as he looked down at Titan, limping faithfully beside Riley, he thought maybe, just maybe, there was still hope. Because sometimes the smallest acts of loyalty could change everything. The rain had stopped by the time Derek returned to the homeless encampment the following evening. The sky was a bruised purple, the last light of day fading behind the ridgeline. The air was cold and damp, carrying the smell of wet earth and distant wood smoke. Derek had spent the entire day making phone calls, pulling strings, and cashing in favors he'd earned over nearly 2 decades on the force. He'd contacted the VA, local veterans organizations, and even a few nonprofits that worked with homeless populations. The responses had been depressingly predictable. Wait lists, bureaucratic delays, and a dozen variations of, "We'll see what we can do." It wasn't enough. Now, as he walked through the encampment, nodding to the familiar faces, he carried a heavy duffel bag over his shoulder. Inside were blankets, hygiene supplies, canned food, and a burner phone, something he'd learned to bring after too many residents had their belongings stolen. Marie, the woman who'd greeted him the night before, waved from beneath her tarp. "Back again, officer?" "Always," Derek said, managing a tired smile. "How are you holding up?" "Still breathing," she replied. "That's something, right?" Derek set the duffel bag down. "Help yourself. Share with the others." Marie's eyes softened. "You're a good man, Derek Hale. Don't let this city tell you otherwise." He nodded, but the words felt hollow. Good men didn't let veterans die under overpasses. As he walked toward the spot where Sergeant Bishop's tent had been, he noticed it was gone. Someone had already claimed the space, a younger man with haunted eyes and track marks on his arms. The cycle continued, relentless and unforgiving. Derek's phone buzzed. A text from Amanda. **** Titan? Won't eat. Won't stop staring at the back gate. I think he knows Bishop isn't there anymore. ***Derek stared at the message, his chest tightening. He typed back, ***, I'll stop by later. Let me talk to him. ***. He pocketed the phone and headed back to his cruiser, but before he could reach it, a voice stopped him. "Officer Hale." Derek turned. A man stood near the edge of the encampment, partially obscured by shadow. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and carried himself with the kind of stillness that came from years of discipline. He wore a simple, gray hoodie, jeans, and boots that had seen better days, but his posture was unmistakable. Military. Derek's instincts flared. "Can I help you?" The man stepped forward into the fading light, and Derek got a better look at him. Late 30s, maybe early 40s. His face was weathered, tanned, with a short beard and piercing blue eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. There was a calmness to him, but also a coiled readiness, like a weapon at rest. "Name's Carter Reeves," the man said. His voice was low, controlled. "I heard about what happened last night. The dog, the vet. Word travels fast out here." Derek studied him. "You homeless?" Carter's mouth twitched in something that might have been a smile. "Not exactly. I'm between places." "That's a yes," Derek said. Carter didn't argue. "I knew Bishop, served with him in Kandahar, 2nd Ranger Battalion. We were in the same platoon." Derek's pulse quickened. You're a ranger? Was, Carter corrected. I got out 4 years ago. Been drifting since. And you just happened to hear about Bishop? Carter's gaze didn't waver. Like I said, word travels. I came to check on him, but I heard he's in the hospital now. That true? Yeah, Derek said. He's stable. ICU at Clarksville General. Carter nodded slowly. Good. That's good. He paused, then added, the dog that found him Titan, right? Belgian Malinois? Derek's guard went up. How do you know that? I asked around, Carter said simply. People remember a K9, especially one that refuses to leave a dying man's tent in the middle of a rainstorm. Derek crossed his arms. What do you want, Mr. Reeves? Carter's expression darkened. I want to know why a decorated ranger was left to rot under an overpass. I want to know why the system that sent us to war doesn't give a damn when we come home broken. And I want to know if anyone's actually going to help him, or if this is just another feel-good story that ends with him back on the street in 2 weeks. The words hit Derek like a punch to the gut, because they were true. Every word. I'm trying, Derek said quietly. I've made calls, reached out to the VA. The VA's a joke, Carter interrupted, his voice hard. 6-month wait for mental health care, 12 months for housing assistance. By then, most of us are dead or gone. Derek's jaw tightened. So, what do you suggest? Carter stepped closer, his blue eyes locking onto Derek's. I suggest you stop playing by their rules. The system doesn't work for people like Bishop. It doesn't work for people like me. If you want to help him, you're going to have to do it yourself. I'm a cop, Derek said. I can't just... Then don't be a cop right now, Carter said. Be a human being. The silence between them stretched, heavy and charged. Derek could hear the distant hum of traffic, the murmur of voices from the encampment, the faint rustle of wind through the underbrush. Finally, Derek spoke. You said you knew. Bishop. You got any idea why he ended up here? What happened to him? Carter exhaled slowly. After we got back, Bishop tried to reintegrate. Got a job, got an apartment. But the nightmares, the PTSD, it broke him. He started drinking, lost the job, lost the apartment. His wife left, took the kid. Last I heard, he was living in his car. Guess that didn't last either. And you? Derek asked. What's your story? Carter's smile was bitter. Same as his, just a different chapter. Derek studied him for a long moment. There was something about Carter Reeves that didn't add up. The way he moved, the way he spoke, it was too controlled, too precise. This wasn't just a drifting veteran down on his luck. This was someone who had chosen to disappear. You running from something? Derek asked. Carter's expression didn't change. Aren't we all? Before Derek could respond, his radio crackled to life. Unit 12, we have a 10 to 10 inches progress at Clarksville General Hospital, ICU wing. Requesting immediate assistance. Derek's blood ran cold. 10 to 10. Fight in progress. He keyed the radio. Unit 12, en route. ETA 3 minutes. He turned to Carter, but the man had already stepped back into the shadows, melting into the encampment like a ghost. Wait, Derek started, but Carter was gone. Derek sprinted to his cruiser, tires screeching as he pulled out onto the main road. His mind raced. A fight in the ICU. Bishop's floor. This wasn't a coincidence. The hospital's parking lot was chaos when Derek arrived. 2 patrol units were already on scene, lights flashing. Derek parked and ran toward the entrance, his boots pounding against the pavement. Inside, the sterile calm of the hospital had been shattered. A security guard stood near the elevators, nursing a bloody nose, while a nurse spoke rapidly into a phone. Derek flashed his badge. What happened? The nurse, Linda from the night before, pointed toward the ICU. 2 men forced their way into Sergeant Bishop's room. They tried to take him, but hospital security intervened. One of the men is in custody. The other escaped through the stairwell. Derek's heart pounded. Is Bishop okay? He's shaken, but physically unharmed. Officer, what the hell is going on? Why would someone try to abduct a dying homeless man? Derek didn't answer. He was already running toward the ICU. When he reached Bishop's room, he found 2 officers standing guard outside. Inside, Bishop sat upright in his bed, his face pale and stricken. "Doctor." Garrett was checking his vitals, speaking in low, soothing tones. "Sergeant Bishop," Derek said, stepping inside. "Can you tell me what happened?" Bishop's gray eyes were wide with fear. "They said I had something they wanted. They said if I didn't give it to them, they'd finish what they started." "Finish what?" Derek asked. "Who were they?" Bishop's hands trembled. "I don't know. I didn't recognize them. But they knew me. They knew my name, my unit, everything." Derek pulled out his notebook. "Can you describe them?" One was tall, bald, had a scar across his jaw. The other was shorter, stocky, spoke with an accent. Russian, maybe. Derek's mind raced. This wasn't random. Someone wanted Bishop for a reason, and they were willing to assault hospital security to get to him. "Did they say what they were looking for?" Derek asked. Bishop hesitated, then reached beneath his pillow. He pulled out a small, battered USB drive, the kind soldiers used to store personal files and photos. "They wanted this," he said quietly. Derek stared at the drive. "What's on it?" Bishop's voice dropped to a whisper. "The truth." Before Derek could respond, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Asterisk, asterisk. "If you want to keep Bishop alive, meet me at the old rail yard in 20 minutes. Come alone." CR asterisk asterisk. Derek's stomach dropped. Carter Reeves. He looked at Bishop, then at the USB drive, then at his phone. The pieces were starting to come together, and Derek didn't like the picture they were forming. Not one bit. The old rail yard sat on the edge of Clarksville, a sprawling graveyard of rusted boxcars and forgotten industry. The moon hung low and pale above the skeletal frames of abandoned cranes, casting long shadows across the gravel and weeds. The air was cold, carrying the faint scent of diesel and decay. Derek parked his cruiser at the entrance, leaving the engine running and the headlights cutting through the darkness. His hand rested on his service weapon as he scanned the yard. Every instinct screamed at him to call for backup, but the text had been clear: "Come alone." He stepped out of the car, boots crunching on the gravel. "Carter Reeves," he called, his voice echoing across the empty expanse. "I'm here. Show yourself." For a long moment, there was only silence. Then, a figure emerged from behind one of the old boxcars. Carter moved with the same controlled precision Derek had noted before, his hands visible, no weapons drawn. "You alone?" Carter asked, his blue eyes sharp in the dim light. "Like you asked," Derek replied. "Now tell me what the hell is going on. Who tried to grab Bishop?" Carter stopped about 10 feet away, keeping a careful distance. "Contractors, private security, the kind of men who get paid to make problems disappear." Derek's jaw tightened. "What kind of problems?" Carter reached into his jacket slowly, deliberately, and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He tossed it to Derek. "Read it." Derek unfolded the paper. It was a photocopy of a military incident report dated 4 years ago, stamped classified. The details were sparse, but the key information was clear. An operation in Afghanistan, 2nd Ranger Battalion, had uncovered evidence of illegal weapons trafficking. The operation had been abruptly shut down, and the evidence had been seized by a private military contractor called Vanguard Solutions. "Vanguard," Derek said slowly. "I've heard of them. They've got contracts all over the world." "They're mercenaries," Carter said flatly. "And they're dirty. That operation we ran, Bishop and I were part of it. We found crates of stolen U.S. military weapons being sold to local warlords. We reported it up the chain. 2 weeks later, the evidence disappeared, and the mission was classified. 6 months after that, half our squad was dead." Derek looked up sharply. "Dead how?" "Training accidents. Friendly fire. One guy wrapped his car around a tree. Another ate his gun." Carter's voice was cold, controlled. "Bishop and I were the only ones left. We both knew we were being cleaned up. So I disappeared. Went off-grid. Bishop tried to fight it, tried to get someone to listen. That's why he ended up homeless. If this story has you on the edge of your seat, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss stories like this. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more incredible true stories of courage and loyalty. They destroyed him. Derek's mind reeled. And the USB drive Bishop has proof, Carter said. Photos, documents, testimony, everything we collected before Vanguard shut us down. Bishop kept it as insurance. But they've been looking for it. And now they know he's still alive. Why now? Derek asked. If this happened 4 years ago, why come after him now? Carter's expression darkened. Because Vanguard just won a new billion-dollar contract with the Department of Defense. Congressional hearings start next week. If that evidence goes public, the whole thing falls apart. They're cleaning house. Derek absorbed this, his cop instincts warring with his disbelief. Conspiracy theories were usually just that, theories. But the men who'd stormed the hospital, the fear in Bishop's eyes, the way Carter moved like a man who'd spent years looking over his shoulder. You're telling me a private military company is trying to kill a homeless veteran to cover up war crimes? Derek said. I'm telling you they already have, Carter replied. Bishop's just the last one. Derek's hand moved to his radio. Then I'm calling this in. Federal investigation, witness protection. No. Carter's voice was sharp, commanding. The moment you do that, Bishop's dead. Vanguard has people everywhere. Police, FBI, Pentagon. You think a small-town cop calling in a tip is going to protect him? They'll bury you both. So, what do you suggest? Derek demanded. We just run? Hide? Carter's gaze was steady. I suggest you let me do what I'm good at. Which is? Making problems disappear. The weight of those words hung between them. Derek's hand tightened on his weapon, but he didn't draw it. He'd spent 18 years upholding the law, believing in the system, trusting that justice would prevail. But standing in this forgotten rail yard, facing a man who'd been betrayed by that same system, Derek felt the foundations of his certainty crack. If I help you, Derek said slowly, I'm crossing a line. I'm breaking the law. You're saving a life, Carter corrected. Sometimes those are the same thing. Derek looked away, toward the distant lights of Clarksville. Somewhere in that city, Amanda and Riley were safe in their home, Titan curled at Riley's feet. Somewhere, Sergeant Bishop lay in a hospital bed, guarded by men who had no idea what they were really up against. What do you need from me? Derek asked. Carter nodded, as if he'd known all along what Derek's answer would be. First, we get Bishop out of that hospital. Tonight, before they send another team. And then we disappear. All of us. Until I can figure out how to expose Vanguard without getting us killed. Derek exhaled slowly. There's a problem. Bishop's too weak to move. And there's no way we're getting him out of the ICU without raising alarms. Carter's mouth curved into a grim smile. Leave that to me. 2 hours later, Derek stood outside Clarksville General Hospital, watching the emergency entrance from the shadows of the parking lot. His heart hammered against his ribs. He'd never done anything like this before, never even considered it. His radio crackled. Unit 12, you available for a domestic disturbance on Maple Street? Derek keyed the mic. Negative. I'm off duty in 10. Dispatch, can you route it to Unit 8? Copy that. He silenced the radio and checked his phone. A text from Carter, sent from a burner number. Asterisk. 5 minutes. Be ready. Asterisk. Derek walked casually toward the hospital entrance, nodding to the security guard, a young guy named Travis who worked nights and always looked half asleep. Travis waved him through without question. Inside, the hospital was quieter at this hour. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting sterile shadows. Derek took the elevator to the ICU floor, his badge clipped to his belt, his expression neutral. When he reached Bishop's room, the 2 officers standing guard straightened. Evening, Hale, one of them said. Officer Rick Jennings, mid-40s, overweight, counting down to retirement. Rick, Derek greeted. How's our patient? Stable. Quiet. Doc says he might be able to move to a regular room tomorrow. That's good, Derek said. He glanced at his watch. You guys been here all night? Since 1,800 hours, Rick confirmed. Nothing's happened. Whoever those guys were, they're gone." "Let's hope so," Derek said. He pulled out a paper bag. "Got some coffee and sandwiches in the break room. Thought you guys might want to take a quick break. I'll watch the door." Rick's eyes lit up. "Seriously? Man, you're a lifesaver." "Go on," Derek said. "I'll cover." The two officers didn't need to be told twice. They disappeared down the hallway toward the break room, leaving Derek alone outside Bishop's room. Derek waited, counting the seconds. At exactly midnight, the hospital's fire alarm began to wail. Chaos erupted. Nurses rushed down the hallway, checking patient rooms. Overhead speakers crackled to life. "This is not a drill. Please evacuate the building calmly and quickly." Derek opened Bishop's door and stepped inside. Bishop was awake, his gray eyes wide with alarm. "What's happening?" he asked, struggling to sit up. "We're getting you out," Derek said. "Can you walk?" I don't know. Maybe. With help." Derek disconnected the IV line and helped Bishop swing his legs over the side of the bed. The man was weak, his body trembling, but he managed to stand with Derek's support. "Wheelchairs in the hallway," Derek said. "We're taking the service elevator. Stay quiet." They moved quickly, Derek half carrying Bishop to the wheelchair. The hallway was pandemonium, patients being evacuated, staff running in every direction, the fire alarm drowning out everything. At the far end of the corridor, near the service elevator, Carter Reeves appeared. He wore a borrowed hospital orderly uniform, a stolen ID badge clipped to his chest. He held the elevator doors open. "Let's go," Carter said. They got Bishop inside, and the doors closed, muffling the chaos. The elevator descended smoothly. "Where are we going?" Bishop asked, his voice weak. "Somewhere. Safe," Carter replied. The elevator opened into the hospital's loading dock area. A van sat idling nearby, its side door open. Derek recognized the driver, Amanda. His heart lurched. "What are you doing here?" "You think I didn't know you were planning something?" Amanda said, her voice tight. "I know you, Derek. And I know you wouldn't do this unless it was life or death." In the back of the van, Riley sat beside Titan. The Belgian Malinois' ears perked up when he saw Bishop, and his tail began to wag. They loaded Bishop into the van, Carter climbing in beside him. Derek hesitated at the door. "I'm coming with you," he said. Amanda shook her head. "No, you go back inside. Make sure no one knows you were involved. We'll take care of him." "Amanda, trust me," she said. "For once, just trust me." Derek looked at his daughter, at his ex-wife, at the dog who'd started all of this. Then he stepped back. "Be careful," he said. The van pulled away, disappearing into the night. Derek stood alone in the loading dock, the distant wail of the fire alarm still echoing through the hospital. He'd just helped a witness escape protective custody, aided a fugitive, and involved his family in something that could destroy all of their lives. But as he walked back into the hospital, back into the chaos, he felt no regret, only the grim certainty that this was far from over. The safe house was a small cabin tucked deep in the woods outside Clarksville, about an hour's drive from the city. It belonged to one of Amanda's nursing colleagues, a woman who spent her winters in Florida and had left Amanda the keys months ago with a casual, "Use it if you ever need to get away." Amanda had never imagined she'd need to get away quite like this. The cabin was modest, 2 bedrooms, a kitchenette, a wood-burning stove that filled the space with warmth and the faint smell of pine. Bishop lay on the couch, covered in blankets, his breathing steady but labored. Carter sat, near the window, keeping watch, his posture rigid and alert. Riley knelt beside Titan, her fingers gently combing through the dog's fur. "He keeps staring at Mr. Bishop," she said softly. "Dogs know when someone needs them," Amanda replied. She was at the kitchenette, boiling water for tea, her hands moving with practiced efficiency, even though her mind was racing. Carter glanced over. "Your ex-husband's going to be in trouble for this." "I know," Amanda said quietly. "But Derek couldn't live with himself if he let Bishop die. Neither could I." Carter studied her for a moment, then nodded. "You're a good woman." "I'm a nurse," Amanda corrected. "It's my job to save lives." "Not like this," Carter said. "This is something else." The door opened, and Derek stepped inside, his face drawn and exhausted. He'd driven separately, making sure no one had followed the van. He locked the door behind him and pulled the curtains closed. "How's he doing?" Derek asked. "Stable," Amanda said. "But he needs rest. Real rest. Not the kind you get in a tent under an overpass." Derek nodded. He walked over to Bishop, crouching beside the couch. The veteran's eyes fluttered open. "Officer Hale," Bishop whispered. "Derek," Derek corrected gently. "Just Derek." Bishop's mouth twitched in what might have been a smile. "Thank you for everything." "You'd do the same," Derek said. "No," Bishop said, his voice cracking. "I wouldn't. I gave up a long time ago. You didn't." The weight of those words settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Derek didn't know what to say, so he simply rested a hand on Bishop's shoulder and squeezed gently. Carter stood, moving toward the door. "We need to talk. Outside." Derek followed him onto the small porch. The night was cold and still, the stars brilliant overhead. In the distance, an owl hooted, low and mournful. "The men who tried to take Bishop," Carter said quietly. "They'll keep coming. Vanguard doesn't give up. They have too much at stake." "Then we go to the press," Derek said. "Give them the USB drive, let them publish everything." Carter shook his head. "It's not that simple. Vanguard has lawyers, PR teams, politicians in their pocket. Even if the story breaks, they'll spin it, bury it, discredit Bishop and us. We'll be labeled conspiracy theorists, or worse. So what do we do?" Carter's blue eyes were hard. "We take the fight to them. We find out who's running the cleanup operation, and we make them back off." "How?" "By making it clear that if anything happens to Bishop, the evidence goes public. All of it. We turn the USB drive into a dead man switch." Derek absorbed this. "You're talking about blackmail." "I'm talking about survival," Carter said. "And justice. Sometimes they're the same thing." Derek looked back through the cabin window. Inside, Riley was showing Bishop photos on her phone, trying to make him smile. Titan lay with his head resting on the couch, his amber eyes watchful. "This isn't what I signed up for," Derek said. "None of us signed up for this," Carter replied. "But here we are." Derek exhaled slowly. "What do you need me to do?" Over the next 3 days, Derek played the role of concerned police officer while Carter worked in the shadows. Derek reported to the station, filed paperwork on the hospital incident, and endured the department's internal investigation into how Bishop had escaped during the fire alarm chaos. No one suspected Derek's involvement. He was too clean, too by the book, too respected. The investigation quietly concluded that Bishop had likely taken advantage of the confusion to slip away on his own. Meanwhile, Carter was hunting. He used old contacts, military buddies who owed him favors, hackers who operated in the gray spaces of the internet. Within 48 hours, he had names. The men who'd tried to take Bishop were contractors employed by a shell company called Redstone Security Group, which was itself a subsidiary of Vanguard Solutions. But more importantly, Carter found the man giving the orders. Marcus Holt, Vanguard's Vice President of Operations, a former Marine colonel with a reputation for getting things done quietly and efficiently. On the third night, Carter called Derek. "I found him. He's in Nashville, staying at the Greystone Hotel, business trip. He's meeting with Pentagon liaisons tomorrow morning." "What are you going to do?" Derek asked. "I'm going to have a conversation with him," Carter said. "And you're coming with me." "Carter, I can't." "Yes, you can. Because if this goes sideways, I need someone there who can keep me from crossing a line I can't come back from." Derek closed his eyes. He thought about Bishop, about Titan, about the oath he'd taken to serve and protect. "I'll be there," he said. The Greystone Hotel was a sleek, modern building in downtown Nashville, all glass and steel and quiet money. Derek and Carter sat in a rented car across the street, watching the entrance. Carter wore a suit, clean-shaven, his hair combed back. He looked nothing like the drifter Derek had met at the homeless camp. He looked like a professional. "Holt's in the penthouse suite," Carter said. "I've got a key card. We go up, we talk, we leave. No violence unless he forces it." "And if he forces it?" Derek asked. Carter's expression was unreadable. "Then you keep me from doing something stupid." They entered through the side entrance, bypassing the front desk, and took the service elevator to the top floor. The hallway was silent, carpeted in deep red, lit by soft sconces. Carter swiped the key card, and the door to the penthouse clicked open. Inside, Marcus Holt sat at a desk, working on a laptop. He was in his late 50s, broad-shouldered, with silver hair, and the kind of presence that filled a room. When he looked up and saw them, his expression didn't change. "Gentlemen," he said calmly, "I've been expecting you." Carter's hand moved toward his jacket, but Derek grabbed his arm. "How did you know?" Derek asked. Holt smiled. "Because I know how men like Carter Reeves think. You're predictable, loyal, honorable. It makes you easy to track." "Then you know why we're here," Carter said. Holt closed his laptop. "You're here to threaten me, to tell me that if I don't call off my men, you'll release the evidence Bishop has been hiding. Am I close?" "Close enough," Carter said. Holt stood, pouring himself a glass of whiskey from a crystal decanter. "Let me save you the trouble. The evidence you have? It's worthless. 4-year-old photos and documents from a war zone? No one cares. The media won't touch it. The Pentagon will classify it. And even if, by some miracle, it did go public, Vanguard has more lawyers than you have brain cells. We'll bury you." Derek's jaw tightened. "You're that confident?" Holt sipped his whiskey. "I'm that prepared." Carter took a step forward. "Then why send men to kill Bishop?" Holt's smile faded. "Because loose ends bother me, and because men like Bishop, broken, desperate, angry, are unpredictable. I prefer certainty." "Not anymore," Carter said. He pulled out his phone and held it up. "See this? This is a live stream. Right now, 3 different copies of Bishop's evidence are being uploaded to secure servers. If anything happens to Bishop, or to any of us, those files go public, automatically. You can't stop it." Holt's expression flickered just for a moment with something like surprise. Then he laughed. "Clever," he said, "but you're still outmatched. Do you really think I can't find those servers? Shut them down?" "Maybe," Carter said. "But by then, the story's already out there, and even Vanguard can't make the internet forget." Holt stared at him, then at Derek, then back at Carter. The silence stretched. Finally, Holt set down his glass. "You're making a mistake." "No," Derek said quietly. "You made the mistake. You forgot that some people don't have a price." Holt's eyes narrowed. "Everyone has a price, Officer Hale. You just haven't found yours yet." Carter stepped closer, his voice low and dangerous. "Bishop's off limits. So are we. You leave us alone, and we leave you alone. But if one more contractor shows up, if one more accident happens, everything goes public. And I will personally make sure your name is attached to every headline." Holt studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Fine. You have a deal. For now." "For good," Carter corrected. Holt smiled coldly. "We'll see." They left the penthouse, the door clicking shut behind them. Derek's heart was pounding, adrenaline surging through his veins. "You think he'll keep his word?" Derek asked as they rode the elevator down. "No," Carter said, "but he'll think twice before making another move. That buys us time." "Time for what?" Carter looked at him. "To disappear. All of us. Bishop, you, your family." Derek's stomach dropped. "I can't. Disappear. I have a life here. A job, a daughter. You have a target on your back," Carter interrupted. "And so does Riley. So does Amanda. Holt knows who you are now. He knows where you live. Do you really think he's just going to let this go?" Derek leaned against the elevator wall, closing his eyes. Everything he'd built, his career, his reputation, his relationships, was crumbling. And for what? For a homeless veteran he barely knew? But as the elevator doors opened and they stepped out into the Nashville night, Derek thought of Titan sitting faithfully beside Bishop's tent in the rain. The dog hadn't asked questions. He hadn't weighed the cost. He'd simply acted, driven by loyalty and instinct. Maybe that's what real courage was. Not the absence of fear, but the refusal to let fear win. "All right," Derek said. "What's the plan?" Carter's expression softened, just a fraction. "We get everyone together, pack light, and we disappear. At least until we can figure out a more permanent solution." "And Bishop?" "He comes with us," Carter said. "He's earned that much." The safe house felt smaller when everyone was gathered inside. Derek, Amanda, Riley, Bishop, Carter, and Titan filled the cabin's main room, the air thick with tension and unspoken fears. Derek stood near the fireplace, his hands shoved into his pockets. "I need to be honest with all of you. What we're about to do leaving like this, it's going to have consequences. For all of us." Amanda nodded. "I know. Mom already called in a family emergency at the hospital," Riley said. "Said we'd be gone for a while." Derek looked at his daughter. "Riley, you don't have to do this. You could stay with your grandparents, finish school." "No," Riley interrupted. Her voice was firm, steady. "We're a family. Even if we're not all under the same roof anymore, we're still a family. And families don't leave people behind." Derek's throat tightened. He looked at Amanda, who smiled softly. "She gets that from you," Amanda said. Bishop, sitting on the couch with Titan's head resting in his lap, spoke up. "You don't have to do this for me. I'm not worth it." Carter, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed, shook his head. "You're a ranger. That makes you worth it." "I'm a failure," Bishop said bitterly. "I lost everything." "No," Carter said. "You survived everything. There's a difference." Bishop looked down at Titan, his hand gently stroking the dog's fur. "Why didn't you give up on me?" he asked, his voice breaking. "Why did you come back?" Titan's amber eyes met his, calm and unwavering. The dog didn't have an answer in words, but his presence was answer enough. "Loyalty doesn't need a reason." Derek cleared his throat. "We have 3 options. 1. We go to the feds, request witness protection, and hope they can keep us safe. 2. We scatter, go our separate ways, and hope Vanguard loses interest. 3. We stick together, lay low, and wait for Carter's plan to neutralize Holt." "What plan?" Amanda asked. Carter straightened. "I have contacts. People who can help expose Vanguard from the inside. But it's going to take time. Weeks, maybe months." "And in the meantime?" Derek asked. "In the meantime, we stay off the grid. No credit cards, no phones except burners. We move every few days. And we trust no one." Riley looked at Titan. "What about him?" "He's not exactly inconspicuous." Carter's mouth twitched. "The dog stays. He's earned his place." Titan's tail thumped once against the floor. They spent the next hour packing. Amanda gathered medical supplies, food, and blankets. Riley loaded the van with essentials. Derek erased their tracks, wiping down surfaces, removing any evidence they'd been there. As the sun began to rise, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, they loaded into the van. Carter drove, Bishop in the passenger seat, Titan in the back with Riley. Derek took one last look at the cabin, then climbed into the second vehicle, a borrowed pickup truck. Amanda sat beside him, her hand resting on his. "You sure about this?" Derek looked at her, at the woman he'd loved and lost and somehow found again in the most impossible circumstances. "No," he said honestly, "but I'm doing it anyway." She smiled. "That's the Derek I remember." The convoy pulled away from the cabin, disappearing into the forest, leaving behind only tire tracks and the faint smell of wood smoke. Behind them, unnoticed, a black sedan emerged from the trees. Inside, a man in a dark suit lifted a phone to his ear. "They're on the move," he said. "Heading west?" "On the other end?" Marcus Holt's voice was calm. "Follow them, but keep your distance. I want to know where they're going before we make our next move." The sedan fell in behind the convoy, far enough to avoid detection, close enough to track. The hunt was far from over. It had only just begun. 3 weeks. That's how long they'd been running. The convoy had moved through Tennessee, crossed into Kentucky, then veered south through back roads and forgotten highways. They changed vehicles twice, traded the van for a beat-up RV that Carter had purchased with cash from a dealer who didn't ask questions. Bishop's health had stabilized. The color had returned to his cheeks, and the haunted look in his gray eyes had softened, replaced by something Derek couldn't quite name. Hope, maybe, or just the relief of not being alone anymore. Titan had become the convoy's constant companion. The dog moved between vehicles during stops, checking on everyone like a guardian angel with fur and teeth. At night, he slept beside Bishop, his body pressed against the veteran's side, a living reminder that some bonds couldn't be broken. Riley had taken to documenting their journey in a journal, filling pages with sketches of the landscapes they passed and notes about the people they met. She'd grown quieter, more thoughtful, but Derek could see the strength, building in her the kind that came from surviving something difficult and discovering you were tougher than you thought. Amanda had become the glue holding them together. She monitored Bishop's health, cooked meals on a portable stove, and somehow managed to make the cramped RV feel like a home. But Derek could see the strain in her eyes, the worry that came from knowing they were living on borrowed time. Carter remained the sentinel. He scouted ahead, checked for tails, and made contact with his mysterious network of former military contacts. He never slept more than a few hours at a time, and he never let his guard down. They were parked now in a campground outside of Gatlinburg, the Smoky Mountains rising like ancient giants in the distance. The air smelled of pine and campfire smoke, and for a moment Derek could almost believe they were just a family on vacation. He sat outside the RV, a cup of coffee steaming in his hands, watching the sunrise paint the mountains in, shades of orange and gold. Titan lay at his feet, ears perked, ever watchful. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Carter said, stepping out of the RV with his own cup. "Yeah," Derek said. "Almost makes you forget we're fugitives." Carter chuckled grimly. "Almost." They sat in companionable silence for a moment, then Carter spoke again. "I got word from one of my contacts last night. Vanguard's congressional hearing is scheduled for next week. If we can get the evidence into the right hands before then, we might actually pull this off," Derek finished. "Maybe," Carter said. "But it's going to be risky. We'll need to come out of hiding, at least long enough to make sure the evidence reaches someone who can't be bought." "Who did you have in mind?" Carter pulled out a burner phone and showed Derek a photo of a stern-looking woman in her 60s, her gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, her eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Senator Diane Mercer," Carter said. "She chairs the Senate, Armed Services Committee. She's a hard-ass, and she's got a reputation for hating corruption. If anyone's going to take this seriously, it's her." "How do we get to her?" "She's speaking at a veterans event in Knoxville in 3 days. Public appearance, open to the press. We show up, hand her the drive, and pray she does the right thing." Derek frowned. "That's a hell of a risk. Vanguard will have people there." "I know," Carter said. "That's why we need a distraction." Before Derek could ask what he meant, the RV door opened and Riley stepped out, Titan immediately moving to her side. "Morning, Dad," she said, yawning. "Mom says breakfast is ready." Derek stood, ruffling her hair. "We'll be right in." As Riley disappeared back inside, Derek turned to Carter. "Whatever this distraction is, I want Riley and Amanda out of it. They've done enough." Carter nodded. "Agreed. This is our fight now. Yours, mine, and Bishop's." Inside the RV, the small space was warm and filled with the smell of eggs and toast. Amanda had somehow managed to create a full breakfast using a portable stove and a cooler, and everyone gathered around the tiny table. Bishop looked better than Derek had ever seen him. He'd gained weight, shaved his beard, and there was a clarity in his eyes that had been absent before. "I want to thank you all," Bishop said quietly, "for everything you've risked for me. I know I can never repay." "You already have," Amanda interrupted gently. "You reminded us what's worth fighting for." Bishop's eyes glistened. He looked down at Titan, who sat at his feet, and reached out to stroke the dog's head. "I think about Sarge every day. My MWD. I used to wonder why he saved me, why he gave his life for mine when I didn't deserve it." "You did deserve it," Riley said softly. Bishop smiled sadly. "Maybe, but I think I understand now. It wasn't about deserving. It was about duty. About loyalty. Sarge didn't think about whether I was worth it. He just acted. And Titan. He paused, his voice thick. Titan's been teaching me the same lesson. That sometimes you have to act, even when you're scared. Even when the odds are against you. Carter met Derek's eyes across the table. The unspoken message was clear. It's time. After breakfast, Carter laid out the plan. They would drive to Knoxville, arrive early, and blend into the crowd at the Veterans event. Derek and Carter would approach Senator Mercer together, while Bishop remained in the RV with the evidence, ready to deliver it if they were compromised. "What about me?" Riley asked. "What can I do?" "You stay with your mom and Titan," Derek said firmly. "Keep the engine running. If anything goes wrong." "We leave," Amanda finished. "We know the drill." Riley's jaw set stubbornly. "I'm not a little kid, Dad. I can help." "I know you can," Derek said gently. "But the best way you can help is by staying safe. Please." Riley looked like she wanted to argue, but she finally nodded. The day of the event dawned clear and cold. The venue was the Knoxville Convention Center, a large modern building in the heart of downtown. Banners hung from the entrance. "Honoring our heroes, a Veterans Day celebration." Derek and Carter entered through the main doors, dressed in civilian clothes, blending into the crowd of veterans, families, and supporters. Derek's heart hammered against his ribs. Every face could be a threat. Every person in a suit could be vanguard. They found Senator Mercer near the stage, surrounded by aides and security. She was exactly as stern as her photo suggested, but there was warmth in her eyes when she spoke to the veterans who approached her. "We need to get her alone," Carter murmured. "How?" "She's surrounded." Carter's eyes swept the room, calculating. "Wait for her speech. When she's done, there's usually a meet and greet. That's our window." They waited, tension coiling tighter with every passing minute. Derek scanned the crowd, looking for threats, and then he saw them. Two men in dark suits, standing near the exit. They had the same controlled posture, the same watchful eyes. "Contractors." "Carter," Derek said quietly. "We've got company." Carter followed his gaze and swore under his breath. "They're watching the exits, waiting to see if we show. We need to move. Now." But before they could act, the lights dimmed. Senator Mercer stepped up to the podium, and the crowd fell silent. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice strong and clear, "today we honor those who have served our nation with courage and sacrifice." Derek barely heard the words. His focus was on the contractors, who were now moving through the crowd, their eyes scanning faces. And then, from the corner of his eye, Derek saw something that made his blood run cold. Marcus Holt, standing near the back of the room, his expression calm and confident. He'd found them. Carter saw him too. "We're blown. We need to—" A commotion erupted near the entrance. People gasped and turned. Derek pushed through the crowd to see what was happening. And there, standing in the doorway, was Titan. The Belgian Malinois stood rigid, ears forward, his amber eyes locked on the contractors. Behind him, Riley held his leash, her face pale but determined. "Riley," Derek hissed. "What are you doing?" "Creating a distraction," she said. Then she unclipped Titan's leash. "Watch her." The command was soft, but Titan heard it. The dog moved forward, not aggressively, but with unmistakable purpose. He positioned himself between the contractors and the crowd, his body language clear. "You're not getting past me." One of the contractors reached for his jacket toward a concealed weapon, but Titan's low growl stopped him. The crowd murmured nervously, sensing the tension. "Sir, you need to control your dog," one of the contractors said loudly, trying to maintain the appearance of normalcy. "He's not my dog," Riley said, her voice carrying. "He's a retired K9, and I think he's trying to tell us something." The crowd's attention shifted. People pulled out phones, recording. This wasn't part of the program. Carter moved fast. He pushed through the crowd toward Senator Mercer, who had stopped mid-speech, watching the commotion. Her security detail stepped forward, but Carter held up his hands. "Senator Mercer," he said, his voice urgent but controlled, My name is Carter Reeves, former Army Ranger. I have evidence of war crimes committed by Vanguard Solutions. Men are here right now, trying to stop me from giving it to you." The senator's eyes narrowed. "This is highly irregular." "I know," Carter said. "But if you want the truth, I'm offering it. Right now. Take it or leave it." For a long moment, the senator stared at him. Then she turned to her security. "Let him speak." Marcus Holt, realizing his window was closing, moved toward the stage. But Titan was there first, cutting him off, teeth bared. Holt stopped, his expression twisting with rage. "Call off your dog, Officer Hale." Derek stepped forward, standing beside Titan. "He's not my dog anymore. But he's still doing his job, protecting the innocent." The crowd was silent now, every phone camera pointed at the confrontation. Carter handed Senator Mercer the USB drive. "Everything you need is on here. Photos, documents, testimony. Vanguard has been selling U.S. weapons to enemy combatants and silencing anyone who tried to expose them." Senator Mercer took the drive, her expression unreadable. Then she looked at Holt. "Is this true, Mr. Holt?" Holt's smile was cold. "I have no idea what this man is talking about." "Then you won't mind if I have my team verify the contents," the senator said. Holt's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. The senator turned back to the crowd, her voice ringing out. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the interruption. But sometimes the most important service we can provide to our veterans is to listen and to act." The room erupted in applause. Holt's contractors retreated, slipping out through the side exits. Holt himself stood frozen, his carefully constructed facade crumbling. Derek knelt beside Titan, wrapping his arms around the dog's neck. "Good boy," he whispered. "You did it." Again. Riley ran forward, tears streaming down her face, and threw her arms around both of them. And for the first time in weeks, Derek felt the weight lift. It was over. 3 months later, the story had exploded across every major news outlet. Vanguard Solutions CEO had been indicted, contracts had been canceled, and Marcus Holt was awaiting trial on charges of conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and accessory to murder. Sergeant Bishop testified before Congress, his voice steady, his words devastating. The USB drive had been everything Carter promised, incontrovertible proof of corruption at the highest levels. Derek had resigned from the Clarksville Police Department. The decision hadn't been easy, but after everything that had happened, he knew he couldn't go back to pretending the system worked. Instead, he'd started something new, a nonprofit called Second Chances, dedicated to helping homeless veterans find housing, health care, and hope. Bishop was the organization's first success story. He now had an apartment, a job helping other veterans navigate the VA system, and a purpose. And Titan? Titan had become the face of the organization, his story shared across social media, his image printed on posters and T-shirts, the dog who wouldn't give up on a dying veteran. Derek stood on the porch of the small house he now shared with Amanda and Riley. They'd gotten back together during those weeks on the run, rediscovering what they'd lost, and watched as Titan played in the yard with Riley. The dog was older now, his limp more pronounced, but his spirit was undiminished. Carter Reeves had disappeared after the trial, slipping back into the shadows, from which he'd emerged. But Derek had received a single text, weeks later, ***, mission accomplished. Stay safe. CR***. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of amber and gold, Derek felt a peace he hadn't known in years. Sometimes, he thought, the smallest acts of courage could change the world. Sometimes all it took was a dog who refused to give up. And sometimes the greatest heroes were the ones who never asked for recognition, they just did what needed to be done, driven by loyalty and love. Derek looked down at Titan, who had trotted over to sit at his feet, amber eyes calm and content. "You did good, partner," Derek said softly. Titan's tail thumped once against the porch. And in that moment, Derek understood what Bishop had learned all those weeks ago. That loyalty doesn't need a reason, it just is. And that's what makes it sacred. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to be. reminded that heroes still exist. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and let us know in the comments what was your favorite moment. Was it the K-9's loyalty, the SEAL's protection, or the moment justice was served? We read every comment. God bless, and see you in the next story.